Cynthia, wow, where do I even begin? Cynthia, she's a chartered accountant. She's the regional HR director, and she's also a certified professional coach. She's the APAC regional HR director for the operations and technology business of a leading global financial institution. She's also the HR advisor to the Regional Diversity and Inclusion Council. Now, not only that, she's also passionate about serving as a board member of Statistic Nurse, a child rescue organization in Nigeria. She loves family time. She's a mom to 3 beautiful kids, and she's been living in Singapore for almost close to 6 years. Welcome on, Cynthia. Next, we have Dr. Jade Kua. I think I need to take a deep breath before I go into, all her amazing accomplishments. So Jade Kua is known as she is a senior emergency medicine consultant, and that's what she does in her day job, right? But more than that, she's also the past president to the Singapore Anti-Narcotics Association and the Association of Women Doctors. She's the director of the Dispatcher Assisted First Responder Program. She's also the spark behind a range of mindfulness children's books, sleepwear, journals, and postcards. And among the multiple roles that she holds, right, she's also an entrepreneur, the founder of skincare brand Street Skincare. On top of that, she's wearing a coaching hat and she's got her own life coaching practice going. Let me take another deep breath. Jade is also the mom to 6 kids, a few dogs, and a total inspiration to her 70K followers on Instagram. Let us welcome Dr. Jade Kua. All right, and now our last speaker, Eunice Yuen. Eunice Yuen she's an inspiration to a lot of women in her team. So she's the she's the Group Financial Service Director and leader to 20 MDA, $1 million agency. And she's leading the Female Group Financial Service Director. And behind her, she has over 20 years of experience. She's also the award winner of the $20 million agency and President's Club from 2012 to 2020. Aside from that, she's also the mentor to a group of over 150 consultants, mom to 2 young girls, and a strong advocate of women empowerment. Welcome on, Eunice. So may I invite all of you to say a very warm welcome to the audience that we have here.
Well, hi, let me start by saying welcome and happy International Women's Day, month, year, and continuum to us all.
All right, Cynthia, Suman, Eunice, Jade, thank you for being here with us this evening. Now, we actually have a very special moderator. However, our moderator's having a little bit of a technical issue. So maybe to kickstart us off, right, can I invite all our speakers to maybe just share in a very brief term, what does break the bias mean to you? Cynthia, would you want to kickstart?
Sure. So just reflecting on this, I think, you know what, we're all the product of our life experiences, our background, education, society, and cultural norms. And a lot of that begins to shape who we are and how we see things. And it also begins to create a conscious or unconscious bias. And I think really that is what we seek to do together, to say, how can we create more self-awareness? And I think this is where coaching is important, because especially for the unconscious bias you have, you don't realize it. So how can we begin to take a look at our conscious and unconscious biases and see which ones are not healthy, which ones we need to break, where we need help to break them, and where we just need to do that inner work to break them ourselves.
And Cynthia, since you very generously helped to kick off this conversation, right? Maybe let's kickstart with the very first panel questions that we have here, okay? What were some of the struggles that you had to overcome in your career or life as a woman?
I can go. So I'll tell you, I was so enthusiastic when I got my job, my first job with the National Computer Board, and I was posted to the Ministry of Finance. It was a big deal for me. And I walked into the office and I the horror of horrors, I just saw everyone speaking in Chinese, and I almost I couldn't believe my ears. It was such a disappointment, after having worked so hard to get this job. And it happened. Even the next day, they just continued to speak in Chinese, and I could have cried. And I just went home and I cried and I cried and I cried, and I could have just cried for the rest of my life, if not for me just deciding that I would step into my authority and speak to the manager. So I went the next day and I said, hey, you know what? This is not working for me because I don't understand what's going on here. And I wonder how HQ would respond if I tell them that I'm leaving because of this. And then suddenly his eyes opened up, and I think he was really not conscious of what was going on. And in the very next day, the meeting, he just told everybody, you know what, guys, everybody has to speak in English from today onwards, and you can still speak in Chinese over lunch. So that was like eureka moment for me. I never imagined that he would do that for me, and because I really felt so good about his effort. I think reciprocally, we need to also step back. So I started to go out for lunch with all of them, and in a way kind of learn Chinese, so I kind of understand it. I don't speak it very well. But the point is, if I did not step into my authority, I would have never been, anywhere. I'd probably be crying till now.
Wow, Suman. I mean, that's a very great example of like how bias can be so unconscious, right? If you had not reached out to your boss or your colleague to bring that up, he wouldn't have been aware.
Yeah. So sometimes, it is for us to take the agency and go do something about it. Yeah.
So that's an example of like a cultural bias that you kind of like you felt, right, in your workplace. What are some of the other biases that you ladies also experience? Eunice or Jade?
For me, I think I'm in the insurance industry. So many people see as insurance agent probably as like aggressive salespeople. And especially for women, right, doing insurance I feel it's often misunderstood, especially when we want to go for the deal. And they would probably think that, we will just like going to get to our own benefits. But, and especially so even till now. And of course, in my earlier years, in my industry especially, the leadership position were usually held by the guys, and then while the sales positions were actually held by the ladies. So being an agent myself, then I could see the struggles of the female agents then, but yet there was a gap. There was nobody that they could turn to for help, and when I took up the role into the management role, into the leadership role, I also felt that the initial years were also very difficult for me because there wasn't a role model. There wasn't anybody I could look upon to. And in our industry then, women in power, there is a perceive that we need to behave in a certain way to rise to the top. And I'm very petite and I don't really speak out a lot. So then there is this like view on me, like, do you ever think that you're going to be a leader to lead a pack of people? And that was the kind of biasness that I had to overcome, because there wasn't any female leaders then. Many didn't dare to step up because there were very few to begin with, and thinking that if we leaders, we ladies will become successful or powerful, it may actually affect our personal life. So that was the perceived thinking then. And I was made to feel that I shouldn't voice out my ideas or opinions then when I was a younger leader. So many actually fear to step up. The fear of failure could often be, I feel, is seen as the greatest barrier of speaking out and taking risks and daring to dream big, and when the odds were not in our favor. So so that was the kind of biasness that I had to overcome in the initial years of the industry. But today I do see a very big difference. In fact, the ladies are actually stepping up, rising up, and it's amazing to see them actually doing very well as well.
Eunice, as you spoke, I just reflected, and I've done an HR role in multiple global organizations where it's multicultural. And as I say, the biases are formed based on our backgrounds. And what I find as a bias for women or against women is that women who are gentle, who are meek, who do not speak up, are often perceived as women who can't do that big role, who can't face off stakeholders, and who can't hold their own in a room with men who are able to deliver. Now, on the flip side, the women who are confident and assertive are perceived to be aggressive. And so I find that playing out when I'm in conversations and they say, oh, this woman is, she's too loud and she's too confident, and her confidence is presumed to be arrogance. And so it's almost like you're in two extremes and you're thinking, where is the comfortable place for a woman to operate, to be accepted in the workplace and to be accepted in the home? Because sometimes what makes you accepted in the workplace does not work for you at home or in your family, depending on the culture that you grew up and how you have been trained to believe a woman should carry herself. So these are some of the biases that play out. And this is where we need men in the conversation, because a lot of them are actually the ones who are delivering that opinion, right? And who are forming that perception. So as long as men begin to understand that, this is a journey, and women are trying to place themselves along that continuum to be relevant and to deliver on their own aspirations. And what we need are people that will promote us, people that will sponsor us. We need male allies. We need people who even voices for us, so that together we can be successful.
Exactly.
Wow. Cynthia,
Exactly.
you brought this point in about allies, right? About men being allies, men being champions and advocates for women, right? And we've also specially invited a male moderator
Ally.
to help, bring this conversation together. And finally, I think he's here in the room.
Yay.
So, Kevin, can you hear us? Are you there?
Yes.
Are you there with us? Are you here with the women in this room? And our allies.
And let me
our
thank
champions.
Kevin. I'm seeing him and I'm super excited. And Kevin, thank you for joining this conversation and moderating. And I think what touches me is that the man is seeking to understand a woman's journey. And by doing this, you're an ally, you're a supporter, you're like a sounding board, right? And so, thank you for doing this. And to all the men who have joined, because I presume it's not just women that are on the call. Thank you. Let's do this together.
Yay, thank you. And it's so important because men do occupy many positions where they can influence policy change, and they are also in roles and positions where they can support all the women as they climb up the ladder, or maybe even in the community as we look for community volunteers to help other people in need. Sometimes men are in positions to advocate and to promote women talent to move into these roles and positions. So definitely, allyship is very important, and there is a definite role for men to support women in whatever avenues that they pursue.
Thank you. Good to hear that coming from a man.
Terrific. Well, why don't we get some questions going in terms of, let's have a quick look at Dr. Jade. Sure. So you're busy with patients, family, and business, as Jada has done your introduction. What does having it all mean to you? How can women strive to achieve all of this? Could you share your experience and how you're juggling everything?
Well, I'd say that there are probably a few components to my answer. One of them is that I work with teams in a lot of my projects, and I've learned to trust them, and I've learned to delegate certain tasks to them. Obviously, they're both men and women in my team, so I try to walk the talk, So if I say I believe in gender equality, then I also make sure that the people I work with compose of both men and women as well. And I cherish the diversity that's within my group as well. And we're talking about age, we're talking about race, we're talking about sexual orientation. So big teams I work with, and I've learned to trust them to the point that I don't have to micromanage every single thing that they do. So in the past, I used to feel like I was a good leader because I was like, their mom. So, doing the big picture strategy thinking and also micromanaging all the small details. And I thought that made me a good leader, but also made me really tired out. And what I've come to do is to learn to trust that this is a team that I'm putting together to manage a certain project, and that, they work well together. And the more I let them do their thing, the more they grow more independent of me, the better it is for them. And I'm not their mom. I'm their team leader. And to maintain those boundaries. I think the other part of that question also is that the teams that I work with aren't just in the professional workplace, but at home as well. So, I trust, for example, the help that I have, my domestic helpers. I trust my parents, my mother-in-law, when they're looking after my children. That's part of the team too, and it seems so strange that just a few years ago, when my children were very small and I wasn't used to that relationship with, say, my parents or my in-laws, for example, that I would feel like I had to micromanage everything that they did, make sure that what they were feeding my kids was exactly what I would be doing, how they were speaking with my kids was the way that I would speak to my kids, and sort of feel like, I couldn't let them do their thing. But now I can. And the last part to that question is that when I learned to let go of some tasks that I do not need to do, or when I learned to say no to certain social engagements so I can free up more time to, have some alone time, which is very important, and some, recovery sleep. I'm learning to do this without feeling guilty, because previously I would be able to say no just because I know that I need to set some boundaries, but I would feel very guilty. And so my energy would be quite low, and I would have this feeling of maybe FOMO, feeling a fear that I wouldn't be invited again, a fear that people would judge me, a fear that people won't like me. And maybe some of those fears are justified, maybe some are not. But I mean, whatever it is, those fears still existed and drained a lot of my energy. And now I don't let that affect me. So I stand by my decisions, and I'm actually able to enjoy the time that I've carved out so preciously for myself, without feeling like I've done someone a hard turn. So I guess that's probably how I would approach life.
That's fantastic. Thank you,
you.
Dr. Jade. Cynthia, how are you juggling everything? Like, you've got a busy global job to do, and then you're a mother of 3. So how do you juggle all of that?
Interesting question, because if I connect it to the having it all, I think that our definition of having it all has greatly been informed by societal expectations around what is it that we need to be and by when. And we keep on benchmarking ourselves against peers or against people that we think we're in this race together. I think one thing that has helped me is to understand that I'm not in a race with anyone, and I'm not under any pressure to fit into another person's mold. And so I then ask myself, what is having it all, and what is my desired state? So for our participants listening, if you do, engage a coach, part of the questions that we'll seek to understand is, what exactly is your ideal state? And I had to ask myself, so what is it that I want? What does having it all mean to me or for me? And then based on that, to begin to define how I can deliver on that. Okay. And so for me, it's giving priority to what needs to be at the forefront at each point in time. So I'm not one of those that think I have to move everything along together at the same time. If one of my children needs my attention at this point in time, I will drop everything and attend to that child. If it's the work and the deadline I need to do, I do that. But just to what Dr. Jade has said, self-care is important. So I also realize that I can't pour from an empty cup. And so I have to take care of myself and be intentional about taking care of myself, because only then would the people around me benefit from that goodwill and well-being that I exude.
Terrific. Thank you. And that is so important. I think the takeaway that I got from Dr. Jade is trust, which is very important, and a support system. So that support system is really important if we're trying to do multiple things. And I love what you said, Cynthia, about prioritization and also about self-care. And maybe I'll move on to Suman just to carry on that self-care question, because women often take the nurturing role, and we always see them either as mothers or sometimes even in the office as somebody who lends an ear and shows empathy. They often look after the kids, family, and with our rapidly aging population, even parents that are aging right now. But they often forget themselves, or maybe even sometimes neglect themselves because they put other people first. Or as Cynthia said, prioritize other things as well, but not themselves, especially their health. So Suman, how important is it for women to have resilience and self-care? And what are your tips in having self-care in our lives?
Thank you for that question, Kevin. And I was just about to, echo what Cynthia said. You can't serve from an empty bowl. You really need to fill up your bowl. But, anecdotes aside, there's been research done. The McKinsey research has shown that, women or men for that matter, who actually invest in their own self-care are 45% more happier overall from an overall well-being. And also they perform 21% times better. So self-care is totally essential. And so what do we mean by that? I mean, I look at it from 3 dimensions. One is the body, and then the mind and the spirit. So of course, the body, I think we all know, one of the most important things is to get enough sleep and rest. And I know many of us sacrifice that, but catch an afternoon nap like I did today, and I'm feeling a lot fresher. So yeah, so get your sleep, ladies. Of course, there's the exercise and the nutrition piece as well. That's equally important. And we want to continue to look good and hold ourselves well in the midst of the jungles that we face. So that's very important. On the mind front, I personally am a mindfulness practitioner, and I do a lot of meditation. For me, that quiet space is so important for your own self-care. Viktor Frankl said, right, between stimulus and response, there is a space. And it is in this space where growth occurs. If you are not creating space in your life, how can you really grow? And when I mean grow, is grow internally and as well as externally, finding the courage to be able to begin to step into your courage and your authority. That's critical. And lastly, from the point of view of the spirit, right, it's really finding a purpose in your life, latching on to something that is bigger, more meaningful, that goes beyond yourself. It goes beyond yourself. And look at these ladies, these awakened Asia ladies, right? They are now using this platform, right, out of their free will to support the organization Daughters, that which you'll hear later on. So when you go beyond yourself, suddenly you feel the surge of energy and power. You need to create it through the space that you create for yourself. And lastly, I feel connection is also important. Many women don't take effort and time to really connect because they're running A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But honestly, for me, just as you have dental hygiene, you need mental hygiene, and that time is needed for that mental hygiene. And part of that mental hygiene is also to build a social network that supports you. So the relationship building, the connecting with the right people. A lot of my clients come to me and I say the first thing you need to know is identify the 5 to 10 people in your organization that you need to get to know in order to succeed. That's step number 1. Many people don't think about that, but that's where I feel the self-care and the self-orientation to that degree is really important.
That's fantastic.
If I may just come in, as you spoke about the network, something occurred to me, and this is about seeking help. And this is something that has worked for me, because for a long time, women, I think kind of, not just women, but men, you kind of like think that seeking help is a sign of weakness, but actually it is a sign of strength, and it just helps us to navigate and deliver on our having it all, no matter how we define it. So I think the courage to actually ask for help is important.
Yeah, absolutely, Cynthia. So, this thing about choosing courage, you can be in the dark, deep hole, but there's two things you can do: either stay in the dark, deep hole, or decide to choose courage and reach out to the right people. And it's very important. So platforms like this, right, are really great, where we get to meet, we connect with people. And once you've met somebody, it's a lot easier to go and reach out. Hey, Cynthia, oh, Eunice, I need your help. I'm stuck in this. And that's how we grow also.
And that's so true. Like, regardless of gender, being able to ask for help is something as humans we should be able to do. And I think that's so important in order to help other people achieve what they want to achieve, whether it's at home or in the office or whatever endeavors that they try to do. Because as they say, no person is an island to themselves. So that's great tips. Thank you, Cynthia and Suman. I just want to go a little bit further into what Suman mentioned about connection. And I'd like to ask Eunice about connection, because yes, you have a self-made business that you're doing as well. You're in a male-dominated space, and you also have a family as well. And in the introduction that Jada did for you, it's like you have so many consultants that are under you. So how do you maintain that connection, whether it's with your family, with yourself, with your friends, like your personal friends, your circle of friends that you are there, you're a busy person. How do you maintain that connection?
Yes, yeah, sometimes when I don't manage it well, I feel kind of overwhelmed initially. So yeah, like what many of us have been sharing, learn to ask for help. I'm also, as any one of us here, we all have 24 hours a day, right? We always talk about managing of our time, but I always believe in also priority management, like, setting aside time and space for things that's important first, and then the second, and then the third. So as much as I have over 150 consultants, but I also learn to give trust, like what Jade has mentioned, giving trust and empowering these people to step up, like really not being their mummies, like treating myself as a friend, as a business partner, as a partner to them. Let's say, I'm a team leader, as much as I'm a team leader or a team partner, but we are in this together, and we are in this, journey whereby we will help each other along. So I guess it's about learning to prioritize, giving that space for them to grow and not stepping in too quick, and so that they can actually become stronger. So be it whether it's at work or at home, it's really about giving that trust and empowering them to become better. And that has helped me a lot in the space of the work that I do, because my team of people are generally quite young. They are in their millennials to probably the mid-30s. I feel that they are actually during their prime years. And mentoring is actually very important for them. And having to be able to feel for them, putting myself in their shoes, having that empathy for them, especially I feel that nowadays the challenges are very different from maybe 10, 20 years or 30 years ago. The people, the younger generation now are actually facing a different kind of challenge. Before that, I could not really understand, because I thought that, hey, how difficult could that be, right? I could just life is tough, but it couldn't be that tough. But I see in today's age, the kind of challenges they face is a different kind of challenge. It's not something physical. I feel it's something that's mental. Right. It's something that in that space where I feel sad for them, because if they are not guided or coached properly, they can fall into a dark space. And that's something that's very scary. So I feel that connection is very important. When you learn to give them a safe space to speak up, to care for them, and to speak up. And I feel that actually you will see a different side of them. And learning to give that trust and that safe space for them to walk out of that tunnel, that dark tunnel, or that area that they are in, you could actually see them grow and become stronger and happier. So I think that connection is first about giving that trust to them. And when that happens, right, I can really see that magic happens.
That's amazing, Eunice, and that is something that really resonates, whether you're at work or with family, because like I have a young daughter, and giving them that safe space in order to tell you what happened at school so that they can connect with you, but also with social media and everything in our electronic age, all the cyberbullying and everything that goes on. What you've just said is so true. Giving them that safe space so that you can really connect with them and find out how they are feeling. And it's so important for young girls. So thank you so much for raising that connection point. That's really, really great.
Sorry to interrupt, Kevin, but I noticed there was a question on the Q&A chat. So I thought I would take that question live. The question is from Thomason Adiyami. And the question is, what do you think is the most significant barrier to female leadership? So what do you think is the most significant barrier to female leadership? For me, I feel that it is when women recognize that there's a problem, but are too afraid to do anything about it. So the reason that I say this is because when I was in medical school, for example, there was actually a quota against female medical students. So a number of female to male medical students was something like 1:3 or something like 1:4. And we didn't question it. So this is maybe about 20 plus years ago. It was just, we knew vaguely that something was wrong. Some of us might argue about it in our little sort of like girl groups, but we didn't really do too much about it because we accepted that this was normal. We accepted the explanation that it was because it cost a lot of money to train, female medical students to become doctors, and then we might waste money if we drop out to become pregnant or go part-time, or, it was basically just not viable for the economy to train us. And it was really only quite a number of years later, when I'd already graduated, that my predecessors in the Association of Women Doctors Singapore banded together to successfully remove this quota. And that was very, very significant. But you can imagine how these were ladies, these are women doctors who are older than I am. And so the change that they enacted didn't happen in their sort of generation of being a medical student, and it didn't happen in my generation of being a medical student, but it affects the later generation of medical students. So sometimes change is hard, and it takes a long time to happen, and it may not even happen in your own lifetime or affect you or your peers, but it will affect somebody, and that's really important. So if they had thought to do nothing about it, then we wouldn't have the current system where students are admitted based on merit. So that's why I think that one of the most significant barriers to female leadership or moving females forward would be to do nothing. And that's my answer to that. Thanks for letting me share.
I think, and Jade, thank you for taking that. And I actually think there are multiple answers. I did want to contribute one, which is around female leaders or female potential leaders second guessing themselves and not giving themselves enough credit for their potential. And I'll just pause there because that's a big one, I guess.
And that leads us on to the next question, actually, Cynthia. So maybe I'll roll into that, because one thing in terms of women trying to succeed, whether it's even at home or in the office, sometimes women worry about the imposter syndrome. And sometimes it becomes quite stressful for them as well. So what are some tips that you can offer to help others overcome imposter syndrome?
Well, Kevin, thank you for directing that question to me. I think, you know what, to be able to provide those tips, if I may, I'd like to share my story and just give you a little bit about my background. Okay, so in terms of a background, I spent most of my adult life, or most of my life before moving to Singapore 6 years ago, in Nigeria, brought up by a Jamaican mom and a Nigerian father, spent a few years in the UK. These were very, elementary years. So predominantly I had lived in Nigeria. entered university at 15 years old, studied accounting, graduated, chartered accountant at 22, and then worked as a chartered accountant for 15 years, okay? Then moved into HR, which I did or have been doing for another 16 years. Okay, fast forward, what happened before I moved to Singapore was that I was a country head of human resources for a global financial institution, right? Moved to another one, still as country head of human resources. I've done a diversity of projects with sales and marketing, corporate affairs, company secretary, etc. And then I got this opportunity to interview for a global head of HR for a same multinational financial institution, leading the corporate finance arm of the business globally, the principal finance arm of the business globally, and all the chief operating officers of the financial institution globally. I interviewed and I got the role. And getting that role means I moved to Singapore, and I had no apprehension about Singapore because I had visited 2 years earlier before I moved. And my first thought was, I could live here. So kudos to the people of Singapore. I see this as home. All right, but I started to panic, Kevin. I thought to myself, oh my goodness, I have lived in a certain geography for pretty much all my life, done things a certain way. Can you still hear me? Okay, yeah, okay. Done things a certain way, mingled with a certain group of people from a cultural perspective. And even though in my job then, I dealt with a lot of foreigners and with my background and lots of travel that I had baked in, I still had about 95% of my workforce from Africa. And so I started to second guess myself, right? And I have these voices, and no, not crazy voices, but just asking yourself some questions. And saying to myself, what if I fail? What if I'm not a perfect fit for the role? Mm-hmm. And I just want to pause here because you asked for tips. So as I share my story, I probably should be talking about tips. So for anyone who is saying, you know what, I'm not perfect for my role, or maybe I wouldn't be perfect for that role I'm interested in, understand that there's no perfect candidate for a role. There's a preferred candidate. But because a role doesn't remain static, because our operating environment is never static, there can never be a state of perfection between a role holder and that role, except the role isn't growing. The role should be evolving and the person evolving. So understand that. And research has shown us that men don't do this analysis paralysis about themselves and whether they're suited for the role. And majority of men will kind of like say, yeah, that role I'm in, and they will learn on the way. Mm-hmm. And our female counterparts keep on analyzing and second guessing themselves. So we have to be wary about that. Now, one of the things that helped me deal with that very quickly was to reflect on my past successes. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to encourage people, and some people do journaling, right? I don't do that. What I do is I live on feedback. And so if I get a nice note or some feedback, even if it's a WhatsApp message, I'll do a screenshot, I'll put a favorite sticker on it, I will save an email in a folder, because sometimes you need to remind yourself that, you know what, you're enough and you've done it. And I had a track record of excellence. So I started wondering why I would be second guessing myself. But let me talk a little bit about second guessing myself and some of the things influence that, okay? I had a senior leader who I had shared my aspiration with, that at some point in the future, I would like to be a global head. Mm-hmm. The person looked at me and gave me that smile, you know, that smile as if, oh, you dreamer, you know, that kind of like, sometimes when people give you that smile. And she said to me, you know what, I would advise you that since you've done a country head role, look for a small regional role first, and then grow and become a global head in the future, many years to come. And I want to advise you all in terms of a tip. Be wary of unsolicited advice that robs you of your dream, mm-hmm. or that demotivates you. You need to be able to identify that and put it aside as noise. The other thing I realized, because when I interviewed, the head of the business said, I don't think I need a global head of HR. I had one before and was completely not valuable. Let me use a kind word. Okay. And I thought to myself, oh my goodness, so how am I going to make a mark? Like Eunice said, I'm also petite. I'm thinking in that management team, between the Caucasians and the Indians, they're all male and they're over a certain age. So what if they dismiss me before I even get to the table? Right? And you start thinking about this. And these are the biases that we create for ourselves. So when we say break the bias, we do this and we think, okay, we're all going forward to tell somebody else or to point out somebody else's biases. But the biases that we have in there are at play. So I just want to say we need to be careful what stories we tell ourselves and we allow to gain root in our own mind. I think I'm going to talk about two other things that helped, Kevin, if that's okay. Okay, so after I kind of like understood that, I had to take out the noise and all the voices that didn't make any sense and begin to trust my track record and my potential. One of the things I did was to go into preparation stage. And I asked the country head of that business, and thank you, someone has given me an applause. That means a lot, thank you. I asked the country head of the business in Nigeria, I said to him, you know what, I've just got this role. I'm going to be the global HR head for your business. And can we have a coffee or lunch so I can discuss with you? Because, hey, I didn't know enough. I didn't think I knew enough about the business. And what I'm trying to bring out here is that women, sometimes we hesitate to reach out to a male colleague or a male counterpart and say, can I do lunch? Can I do a coffee? Because we think, hey, what if I'm misunderstood? Or what if my colleagues misunderstand my intention? But we just need to understand that the senior leadership population is predominantly male still, and we need the support of men to be able to realize our own potential. So that worked like magic. He embraced it. He took me through the fundamentals. By the time I went for my first global management team meeting, I felt like I kind of like knew more than they thought I would know because I had done the research. The other thing I said to myself is, you go in there and know that you're enough. And understand that the fact that you're enough doesn't mean you're perfect. Yes. And so there must be some element of humility and self-awareness. And this is where a coach helps us to see our blind spots, and kindness and empathy, but also the ability to learn. So that learning agility to say, you know what, I want to keep learning. And I think we all need to be intentional about finding that time to develop ourselves. And what happens as women is when we finally are able to detangle ourselves from that busyness, we think, oh, I have to invest it in my family and I can't afford to invest it in myself because I've been a terrible mother, I'm a horrible wife, and I've been snappy, and so I have to keep on giving. And Suman had mentioned it, and we said, you can't give what you do not have, so invest in yourself. And understand, and this is probably my last word, understand that there's no perfect person. And as long as we understand that learning agility is the key to realize our future potential, and we continuously are intentional about being a better version of ourselves, that imposter syndrome is knocked out of the park, is dead.
Here, here.
Stop.
Great, Cynthia, thank you. And I love what you said about the biases. It's not only the biases of other people, but our own internal biases, which is so important to like get a hold of, because we basically hold ourselves back because of our own preconceptions, which are our own biases. So break the bias is not only just for other people outside of ourselves, but also ourselves internally. So thank you for pointing that out.
Hey there, I just wanted to, sorry, Kevin, I wanted to jump in there and give Cynthia some feedback because she said that she thrives on feedback. And I want to say, Cynthia, you're amazing. You're inspirational and you're doing so super well. So thank you so much for sharing your personal
Thank
story.
you.
And there is so much positivity as well on all of the chats that we're involved in right now. Everyone's sending hearts and claps and things. So hey,
Oh,
Cynthia.
that means a lot. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Fabulous.
So that was one thing. The other thing I wanted to say was that on the Q&A chat, there's a couple more questions that have come up, and I thought I would just address them really, really quickly, if I may, Kevin.
Sure.
One of them is from Thomason Adeyemi, and the question is, what advice do you have for women looking to grow either their own business or within the company they work for? What advice do you have for women looking to grow either their own business or within the company they work for? I would probably say that my advice would be to form a community or join a community rather that would be supportive of you. So coming today to the Women Rising session by Awaken Asia, organized by Collective Change, is a great step because you are coming forward and joining a community, whether you're in the audience or whether you're on the panel. I mean, we're here for one another, you know, we take turns in the spotlight, you know, we're here to make sure that we all get through this, you know, the women, we've got male allies as well. Thank you, Kevin, you know, and everyone else that's in the audience. I know Xingjian is here as well, and Eugene. So we're in this together. So advice that I have to women who are looking to grow either your own startup or within a big company that you work for is to seek out allies, seek out a community, because even if you don't have all the solutions to everything, you at least have that space to sound out ideas, find out whether you're the only one that thinks something is wrong, for example, or if actually the whole community thinks, you know, the quota on female medical students is so wrong. You know, you wouldn't know if you didn't say it. If it just kept silent, you wouldn't have realized it. So having a community is super important. The second question that I can see is from Xingjian Tan. And the question is, does the panel have any personal mantras or behaviors that you stand by that you feel if others can take on would help to #break the bias and make the world a better place, so to speak? So the question is whether or not we have any personal mantras or behaviors that we stand by that we feel others can take on to help to break the bias. And my answer to that, and I'm sure other panelists will have other things to say after this, but my very, very quick answer to that would be to be brave. The world is a scary place. Life is unfair, but it's okay. Just be curious, be brave, and don't let yourself be limited by what other people think of you. That would be my answer. I'm done speaking.
Can I add to that quickly? And first of all, let me close off my story by saying it was a huge success with that organization. And when I was leaving, I got a gold plaque with all the global management team members' names etched on it. And if we, you know, before the end of this session, I can go find the plaque if you want to see it. And that's one of my most prized possessions, because they came from a point of saying, we don't think we need anyone. And you know, to the point where all the biases were thrown out of the window and they acknowledged the value that I brought to the table. Now, that question, Jade, I did want to respond to it. Tell me what it was again.
Does the panel have any personal mantras?
Oh yeah, I remember, a personal mantra. So mine is about understanding that we're, for me, blessed to be a blessing. And that all that our experiences, both positive and negative, have enabled us to become is so that we can help someone else and leave people and places better than we found them. And also because not everybody gets the opportunity that we have received. So being able to pull another person up, to show another person their pathway and support them, because life is hard. I think Jade said something like that. Life is hard and people are having different life experiences. And just understanding that some people need support to cope at that particular time in their life. And sometimes we need support. And so blessed to be a blessing, I think that would be my mantra.
Terrific. Suman, what about your personal mantra?
Yeah. So for me, you know, whenever I come to a standstill or a roadblock, I choose courage, right? Simply choose courage. And in that choice that you are making, you will find that something happens, you know, and I also believe that, you know, from the wisdom that I've gained from, you know, coaching leaders is, I feel that in a very gentle way, you can shake this world. The analogy I give is that if something comes your way, don't fight it like Taekwondo. Just do the Tai Chi move, come back, take a deep breath in, and then push it off, right? So this is an art, and that's my mantra. I've seen it work tremendously well.
That's great.
I need to ask you a question, Suman, around that Tai Chi move, right? So do you think, and Kevin, if I may, so while it comes naturally to some people, I think other people are naturally inclined to kind of like try and fight things depending on their disposition. So how would that play out? What do you think about navigating the personality types with your mantra?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of my clients are very high D, you know, they would do this and then they realize, yes, you can do it once, twice, and then your wrist will start to hurt. And so the better way to do it is to take it all in, understand the issue, and then when it is the right time and the right space, give it all back. And I think that has really worked. In fact, my specialization is to work with leaders who are abrasive. Like, you know, Jada said, boss whisperers, these are the guys who are highly intelligent, talented, but, you know, they leave blood on the table, the way they speak to people, they scream, they yell, they, you know, fight to get what they want, but in the end, they are losers. So the way we teach them is to do the Tai Chi move.
That's great.
Great.
And Eunice, any personal mantras or behaviors that you employ?
For me, I believe that we don't have to change or lose ourselves to get to where we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really about being authentic, you know, and not like trying to be someone else. And that's what I've always been living by. And yeah, I guess that's very important to keep me sane and happy.
That's fantastic. So we have lifting other people up, we have courage, and we also have being authentic, which is really, really great, because the thing is, it gets very, very tiresome when you try to be somebody else. And you're already so busy, and to be somebody else where you have to put more energy and more effort, it's like you're going to be exhausted by the time lunchtime comes. So I invite our audience, if you have any questions, because we're going to come up to some Q&As, to put it into the Q&A box. But in the meantime, because the theme of International Women's Day 2022 is about breaking the bias, we have to ask this question. What are some of the stereotypes or biases that you have faced or heard about women, and how have you overcome them? So maybe I start with Dr. Jade.
I think when it comes to biases against women in the same medical profession, for example, it is often that you have to be so very extraordinary to be a leader.
Right.
You have to work 10 times as hard. And perhaps it was true in the past, but I do feel that today, as we're trying to, as we talk about gender equality, we should really, you know, walk the talk. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you an example. I was introducing a female colleague the other day on a panel, and she's my classmate. And I introduced her as the first female colorectal surgeon who made it to senior consultant in the Department of Colorectal Surgery and one of the general hospitals. And it was, you know, met with a lot of applause, obviously. It's like, wow, fantastic, first female senior consultant in the Department of Colorectal Surgery. But that, it really did get me thinking, why is she the first female senior consultant in the Department of Colorectal Surgery? Like, how is it that this hospital has been around for so long and it's always been men, you know? And so it's just the fact that the bias is just that women might make good nurturers, might be good supporters, might be able to assist, but it's so hard to imagine a woman as a leader. And a woman has to be a particular type to become a leader, you know. Either she has to be a bit more aggressive, or maybe she cannot be too aggressive, or, you know, it's just, why can't she just be a leader? Why can't she just be her? Why can't she just be who she is? I mean, few people question why a man is a leader. Few people will say, oh, you know, it's because he was, you know, aggressive enough, or he was gentle enough. He was just a leader. He just did well. And that's all it is. So we could recognize women for their accomplishments rather than trying to pad it with, her personality or the circumstances that got her to where she was. Treat her as an equal, to her male counterparts. I think that would, do away with some of the biases that we have. There's no need to account for why she's the leader. She simply is. She's good enough. She's enough. We don't have to make a big song and dance out of it. And we don't have to make her feel like she has to account for why she's a leader, and make her feel like she has to answer questions about what's it like then to, have children, what's it like then to have some other, there are many male leaders who are married with children and who are also entrepreneurs and have a side business in F&B or whatever it is. But, one does not make a big song and dance out of that. It is just, he's a leader. He happens to have children. That's it. But somehow it tends to be not that way when it comes to women leaders. So I think that's interesting how we ourselves view that. And that's my answer.
That's great. And what you've just said, if I can just quickly put a summary to it, is it's all about equality. So just treat women just like the way you would treat men. And why should you single women out specifically for that? And I love that, Dr. Jade. Thank you so much. Eunice, what kind of biases have you heard about women?
I feel that in my industry, to be, like I mentioned earlier, right, to be in women in power, you have to be deemed to be very mean, very aggressive, and that's always the saying, right? It's lonely at the top, and that is really somewhat some people would feel that that's why they don't want to get there. But personally, I feel that, like what Jade has mentioned, right, is having that community. Actually, I don't really feel very much alone. I have much more friends when I'm out there. And I guess it's really about breaking that bias to let the people out there know that you don't have to be mean. You don't have to, like what Suman mentioned, like, you need to be very high D. In fact, I'm not at all a D. There are certain Ds, but definitely, you don't have to have to win the battle to be full of blood, right? So I guess it's really about in the women in leadership, we can bring out the best in us. And that's what being unique in our own ways, and we'll be able to attract the right people and the right audience to us.
That's fantastic. And Eunice, just to support that point, today there was a lecture from the University of Chicago that was broadcast globally. And in financial services, more customers trust women than men. And I think that's just so important, to just be authentic. There's no reason why a woman needs to be mean or whatever just to do the same job as a man. Because customers themselves, and it's been proven by empirical research now, that customers trust women more than men in financial services. So
yes,
that's great.
Right. Yes.
Thank you. Suman, what have you heard in terms of biases against women?
So, to be very honest, for me, it was the other way around. It was me coming from an Indian traditional family. Like, they didn't want me to work. They wanted me to get married to some rich man and, paint my nails and stuff like that. But so my focus was trying to fight the family to get out there and to do this. And so it never troubled me at work. Like, I just thought, like, the fight to get out of the family to do this was in itself breaking that bias. And I just, once I felt that freedom to go out, it never really hurt me, I never felt that. So I think a lot of it, like we've been talking about here, is also your mental state. Right? If you go in with the right mental state, men are just as vulnerable as women, and I find it easier to work with men than with women. I've seen some really bitchy women and who get into the way of women. So I think we need to break this bias. It's not about the man or the woman. How do you begin to look at things? And that's where coaching comes in. You see a whole new dimension that you never saw before.
That's fantastic. That's really good, Suman, because sometimes our own family are our own internal biases, because we have expectations to live up to, and especially coming from an Asian culture, it's like just do what your parents tell you to do. So that is a bias in itself. Thank you for highlighting that. And Cynthia, our last panelist, what biases have you heard about women?
So I connect with everything that, both Suman and Jade and Eunice have said, and more. So generally, I find out that there's some perception where women are either perceived to be emotional, right? And emotional is fine. It just means that women are human, right? And in touch with their feelings. So we should stop thinking being emotional is a negative thing. The other thing is that on the other end of the spectrum, some women are seen to be aggressive and tough managers. And I think it's Suman that mentioned that, right, or Eunice, in terms of women are perceived to be tough managers to other women. And if that is happening, then we need to stop and begin to support women who are aspiring, because we should be in a position where we understand their journey even more. Okay. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention, and I've seen this happen a lot, is that people make decisions on behalf of women in the workplace without consulting the woman. So, her children are 3 and 1. She can't be mobile. You have a job in another location. No, she's not mobile. We need to take time to understand that women are human beings who have aspirations. And to Jade's point about support networks, you have to find out what her aspirations are and when her readiness level is. So if there's an opportunity, instead of discounting women and saying, you know what, this person can't do it, oh, she's just had a baby, or this person can't do it, she's going on maternity leave, or this person can't do it because her mother or her father is elderly and we take care of our elderly ones. The best thing to do is to have a conversation and give women an equal invitation to whatever party it is that is being planned, right? Whatever opportunity, and let a woman speak for herself. And this unsolicited advice thing to also, tone it down a little bit and let a woman reach out when she needs to discuss.
That's fantastic. And Cynthia, you raised such a huge point about empathy and emotion, because I'm sure all of you have already seen we're going through the Great Resignation or the Great Reshuffle right now. And what's the major cause of the reorganization or the reshuffle that's going on right now? And that is that managers aren't showing empathy to employees during the pandemic. And that's where women have the advantage, because they have the empathy more than men do. And it's like, so why aren't more women in leadership positions? Maybe we wouldn't be going through this Great Resignation.
Correct. And to that point, Kevin, you see, one of the things that research has proven that people need even more in this era is psychological safety.
Yes.
And so to what extent do I feel that I am valued, I am being heard? Do I feel safe and able to realize my potential in a work environment that I have? And that sort of thing is now causing people to take decisions about whether to stay or leave an organization. And so we need to be mindful. And to your point, if a woman is more in touch with her feelings, it's more about also understanding another person's journey and saying, now, how can I support you, instead of that one size fits all approach, which we had adopted as a management style many years ago. And so to that point, I think that as human beings, male and female, we have to keep learning, relearning, and to some extent unlearning. Because there are elements of the way that we did things that worked in the past that will no longer work for us. So how aware and matured are we about understanding that, okay, if I have X amount of experience, let me extract that which is still relevant, and let me discard that which is not, and let me continue evolving in a way that benefits myself, my family, and the organization that I work for, that I run.
That's fantastic. And that's so important in terms of evolution. Regardless of whether we're men or women, we have to evolve and remain relevant. And I think the pandemic has just shown that we are adaptable as humans. And in order to ensure that we live our fullest life or our maximum potential, we need to make sure that we adapt and to be able to support one another, which all of you lovely ladies have helped communicate tonight. So on behalf of the Women Rising and Awakening Asia, I'd love to thank our panelists. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your journey, your experiences. You've definitely inspired many people around the world because they're also watching this live on Facebook. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Jada for the wrap up.
Thank you, Kevin. Wow. Can I just say thank you, Kevin? Thank you, Suman. Thank you, Jade. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Eunice. Thank you for this conversation. And in the last, hour or so, I've just been basking in all of your presence. Your wisdom, your strength, your resilience, it touches me. And I hope that all of you on this webinar here with us this evening, and those that's watching us live on Facebook, right? You are inspired by this amazing panelists, right? To take that step forward to make a stand against bias. Whether is it the bias within yourself, your personal ones, or the biases that the world unconsciously put against you. So I hope you're inspired with this. And together, I think by lifting each other up, stepping into your courage, being authentic, right? These are just one of the many ways that we can all go forth to create, breaking the bias and make the change in the world and forge a more gender balanced world.
So, someone said they wanted to see the gold plaque. So I wonder if you can see it, but probably
background.
Not. Probably not, but maybe you see etches of the names of people there. So I saw it in the chat group if somebody wanted to see that.
Yeah, you gotta put that picture up on social media and share it with all of us. So we can celebrate you. All right, so to all the audience that's still here with us, if you are inspired and you are looking to break these limits, we have a Coaching for Change C4C initiative for you. Okay, C4C is a ground-up movement where we bring coaching to the community. Now, C4C is brought to you by Collective Change Institute, CCI, and in the last 6 years, CCI has been training and certifying coaches. Especially for IWD this year, we have put together a panel of 10 certified female coaches that have stepped up to bring the power of coaching to women in community. Okay, so what does this mean? Okay, we have 20 pro bono coaching slots open up. And in a very, very short amount of time, I think a lot of the slots have been filled up, and now we are left with, I think, 8 more slots left. Okay, so if you are looking to break your own personal biases, if you want to, rise to the next level in your professional role or in your personal life, sign up for Coaching for Change. All you need to do is scan the QR code on the screen, register your interest, and shortlist your coach, and then you will get to kick off coaching. Okay, now a very special collaboration that we are doing this year for IWD is that we are bringing all the donation that's coming from the coaching, and all the proceeds will go towards Daughters of Tomorrow. And this year, every dollar that is donated is going to be matched dollar for dollar by the Tote Board. And so not only are you creating this meaningful change for yourself, you are also creating a meaningful change for others, especially for Dot Women. So maybe let me bring up India. India's in charge of capacity and partnership in Daughters of Tomorrow, and I'll get her to share with all of you a little bit more about this campaign that we are running. What exactly is Dot Vision and what is Dot hoping to achieve? So India, welcome on.
Thank you for inviting me, Jada, and it was really, really amazing to listen to Cynthia, Suman, Eunice, and Jade, as well as Kevin for being an amazing moderator for the panel. I've learned so much, and I've actually written notes like on my little my little book, I've written notes. And one of the things that I think really resonated with me was the idea behind blessed to be a blessing. And I think that's something that this is something that it's also paying forward, and the idea behind Collective Change Institute's Coaching for Change. It's also about creating that network and supporting women supporting women. So Daughters of Tomorrow, we are an IPC charity here in Singapore, and we focus on helping women from low-income families get into livelihood opportunities here. So the women that we work with are between the ages of 20 to about 45. That's the bulk of the women that we serve, and they come from a household income of under 1,900 per month, or a per capita income of $650. So this is about the bottom 10% of the social economic strata here in Singapore, and that it's about 25,000 families that live in that bracket. DOT is currently, we do have the capacity to serve about 2,000 women a year, and with your help, we hope to be able to spread our wings and do a little bit more. So there's a lot of synergy in what everyone was speaking today. It's about, collective change, as well as and to be authentic and really create that support network. And that's what DOT also believes very much in, that we believe that women with the right resources, the women that we serve at least, with the right resources, know exactly what they need to do in their lives. And with a support network that we are building around them, they will be able to achieve their dreams and aspirations. And we're just there to facilitate that conversation and provide them with a leg up in that environment. So we in this past 2 years, I think all of us have moved online, and we are online right now on social media as well as on Zoom, and being able to do this webinar. So it doesn't really matter to us where we are, but we're able to do this together. But for a lot of the women that we work with, internet connectivity, it's not a given. A lot of them are still using mobile phone connection. A lot of them are still connecting to the internet on their mobile devices. That is good for keeping in contact with your friends and families, but from the work environment, it's going to be a little bit challenging when an entire family of maybe 5 people with children and adults are sharing one common computer and not having Wi-Fi at home and having to teeter off your computer on your network. So we are, building a community around that, trying to get secondhand laptops, trying to get mobile devices to them to really help our women stay connected and to be able to continue to learn and stay relevant in today's digital city and in all work. And them also wanting to, seek out work from home opportunities. We're also working with employers to make sure that we are helping them find suitable and sustainable employment opportunities. So we're really, really looking for more people to come and join us. And if any of you want to volunteer, do check out our socials, do check out our website to see what's going on that we have. Like Jada mentioned, this is a sub-campaign really focusing on digital inclusion and IT literacy. And because it's a campaign that we are running for this year, it's going to be matched by Tote Board. So every dollar that it's given towards this campaign, it's double, so your efforts are double. So once again, thank you so much for allowing me to be here and sharing a little bit more about Daughters of Tomorrow. Please check us out, find out a little bit more about us, and reach out if you want to find a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, India. Thank you for being here, and thank you for the amazing work that you are doing at DOT. So to all the audience that's here, even if you do not join us for the Coaching for Change initiative, do support Daughters of Tomorrow. What you can do is scan the QR code and donate to their cause, and I believe together we can help raise each other up. So now we are moving on to the last bit, okay? It's great listening to all the amazing stories, wisdoms, and sharing by our panelists, but nothing is more important than putting all of this into action, right? Because you need to make sure that you create the action to create the change in your world. So we have a short learning segment where we'll be sharing, if you could put into, scan the QR code that will be on the screen later, okay? Let us know, what action are you going to take to go forth to break the bias? All right, so could we have the screen up just to have the QR code and for everyone to put in the learning segment? Yes, so scan the QR code over here. This is where we are going to collect all your actions and make sure that you create the actions that you need to go forth to break the bias. Now, maybe as a way for all of us to wrap up, So all
Sorry, Jada, may I just interrupt for a short while?
Sure.
Whilst everyone's scanning the QR code and answering the survey, I thought I'll just take the opportunity to answer the very last question that's come up in the Q&A chat. And that question is from Thomason Adeyemi, and it says, in leading, I sometimes worry about upsetting people. There's a temptation to be passive and a bit to be nice, or even overcompensate and apologize for speaking up. How can I be assertive and powerful without upsetting people? So the key question is, how can I be assertive and powerful without upsetting people? And it seems to be an issue that she's struggling with. And I think actually this is a great time, to seek help from the community, either from a mentor at work. So, somebody like Eunice has been talking about how she's like a mentor at work and she leads a team, or even a coach. There's so many coaches on this panel. There's Cynthia, there's Suman, there's myself, Jada, obviously. And if you are interested in, being coached for this issue so that you can open up your perspective or seeking advice from a mentor, then, you might want to be a part of the Coaching for Change challenge that Jada and the people at Collective Change Institute have talked about, and that obviously goes to benefit Daughters of Tomorrow as well. So think about that. Think about seeking help from the right spaces, very directed, either getting advice from a mentor or opening up your perspective through coaching. And there's an opportunity right here tonight to receive coaching from some wonderful ladies, I understand. So that's probably going to be my answer to the question. Thank you.
Thanks,
And a
Jade.
great one. A great one, Jade.
Thanks, Jade. Well, that's actually already one actionable that, the panelists have for all of you here. So maybe let's go one round and hear just keep it short, one sentence, what's one actionable that you hope the audience walk away with? Suman, to you first.
Oh, I've said it before, choose courage.
Choose courage, nice. Cynthia, what's one actionable that you hope the audience to walk away with?
I'm looking very guilty because I have to say two, and pardon me, Jada, as we talk about Daughters of Tomorrow, I can't help thinking about my own support network and my two daughters on the call, Arayo and Arola, and my niece, Tomise, who's been asking great questions, my cousin, and all of you who I've invited, thank you. I would say the one sentence, keep the conversation going. Don't let it end with a month or a day. Keep it going.
Cynthia. Kevin, what about you? What's one actionable that you hope that the audience walk away with?
Well, hopefully for the men in the audience, it's like step up and have a conversation about changing policies, changing mindsets, and just be an ally to the position of women in your workplace or at home or in your community.
Amazing. Eunice.
For me, I think it's really about encouraging all the men and women out there to really step up and really not to shortchange ourselves. There's time for everything and there's a season for every purpose. So go out there and pursue our dreams and our goals.
Beautiful. Well, thank you all of you for being here with us this evening. I hope this evening has gotten you inspired to go forth, make that change. Awaken Asia, together with Collective Change Institute, will be bringing you more community events such as Women Rising. We'll also be bringing you more learning talks, conferences. So do follow us at awaken.asia as well as Collective Change Institute. And we look forward to interacting with you more and joining this community where we raise each other up. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Photo time.